Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. This is actually the 6001 PROJ 6001 Integrated Project Management class lesson. And we have a guest speaker tonight, Gert Noordzy from, well, he's from Macau, I think, from China. And I've sent out his bio, and so I think you're probably all aware he's quite an accomplished chap, and he's going to be discussing project management, a couple of different areas of project management. Why do things go wrong in the hotel industry, and some other bits and pieces. And for me, I find I'm looking forward to this because I don't know much about the hotel industry. I just know a bit about building and construction and those sorts of things, but the hotel industry is a sector on its own. So it'd be good to get some insights as to what goes wrong, what goes bump in the night for the operators within that sector that we might be able to relate to. And I'm sure we'll find a lot of connections. I will ask that people don't have their video, their video on, or their audio. I'm concerned about the bandwidth with the video and the audio. I just don't want to have any, noisy things going on in the background inadvertently. So if we can just, hold back the urge to sort of show ourselves and all that sort of thing, that would be great. Look, I'm going to let Gert get going now because he's going to be going for over an hour, and we haven't actually discussed this, Gert, but we probably should have, if you would like, a break somewhere in there. I know that when I talk for an hour, I'm looking forward to just letting my voice have a bit of a rest. So if you feel that way inclined, please feel free to say, okay, we'll have a 5-minute break or something like that, and we'll take that as a drink break, and we'll go and put the kettle on or something like that. But anyway, look, without any further ado, he's a decent sort of a bloke. He speaks with a funny accent, but look, that's all right. We can all understand him, I'm sure. I'll just hand over now to Gert. Thanks, Gert. Over to you.
Glenn, thanks a lot, and good evening, everybody. I am calling from Macau, China. I recently found out that there's actually 4 Macaus in the world. One of them is a beach in the Dominican Republic. And when I entered there for a project inspection, and the officer asked me, where do you live? I said Macau, and he thought that I was some homeless person. And I showed him my Macau ID card, and then he got it, and he started laughing, shouted something in Spanish to his colleague. And it was only on the highway, on the way to the project site, that I found out that there's more than one Macau in the world. So in any case, tonight we're not going to talk about the Dominican Republic and projects there, but about hospitality projects in general. I am not a project manager. I'm an accidental project manager. I trained to be a hotelier, and at some point in my career, I was asked to open a hotel. And when I asked, well, how do we do that? Well, here's the CD-ROM with the brand standards. Just go there and figure it out. And I did figure it out. That landed me into a second project, a third project. My hotels tended to open on time. I didn't know too much about scope, cost, and quality yet, but that got me into corporate roles. And at some stage, I was opening Holiday Inn Expresses across China, followed by opening all kinds of brands across the whole of Asia for Wyndham Hotel Group. And that was to the magnitude of 15 to 20,000 keys per year. And opening one hotel is, of course, one thing. Opening 100 projects simultaneously in different locations, you need to do things differently. And that's when I started to seriously pay attention to project management. Now, in tonight's presentation, I'm going to run you through the problem and the causes of hotel opening delays, as well as the consequences that are measurable. And when we understand what the problems are, I'm going to talk about the solution. And just to preempt this, this is not a course in project management per se, but rather what are the phases in a hotel project and how do those phases integrate, okay? So on a typical project like this, just to preempt the question, do we hire Glenn or do we hire Gert? The answer would be you hire both. You hire Glenn to manage time, scope, cost, and quality, and you hire someone like Gert in order to provide the industry-specific input, okay? So here we go. So in the first session, I'd like to share with you what the root causes of hotel openings are, that there is a discrepancy between what people think and what is actually happening in the industry, and understanding how severe the financial consequences are of poorly managed hotel projects. So if we look at it worldwide, the hotel development pipeline stands at 15,000 projects, which is good for 2.45 million hotel rooms. That level has never been that high. And what it means compared to last year is an 11% increase in projects and an 8% increase in rooms. In 2019, last quarter of the year, almost 7,000 projects or 1.2 million hotel rooms were actually under construction. This is pre-COVID-19, of course. The three countries with the biggest pipelines are the United States, 5,700 projects, over 700,000 rooms. China is number two, 3,500 projects, almost 650,000 rooms. And then the number drops very quickly. Indonesia, 367 projects, just over 60,000 rooms. Now, in our region, hotel openings are very frequently delayed. And whenever I speak with hospitality industry professionals, it is like, yeah, you know, that's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. It's part of the landscape. So what we're going to talk about in this presentation is the discrepancy between those perceived reasons and the actual reasons of the delays. And this is an important subject because poorly managed projects, specifically hotel projects, have severe financial consequences. You waste project resources, there are opportunity costs, and it attacks your share price if you're listed on the stock exchange. This slide here is from my current research project, and I conducted a post-project review of 635 hotel openings in Greater China, all under a hotel management agreement with an international brand. And what we measured was the pre-opening phase, so the final phase before the hotel opens. Now, as you can see here, Good, Bad, Ugly, the movie from Clint Eastwood, this is ugly because 70% of all those projects were actually delayed. The 20% that was on time, they scored very poorly on scope, cost, and quality. What I can tell you about the average delay was that typically the general manager for a 4- or 5-star hotel would start opening -1 year. In this case, the hotel did not open after 12 months, but after 23 months. So a delay of 45 weeks. And let's have a look at what happened in those 45 weeks. I personally do not talk about a hotel opening, I talk about readiness. And readiness is defined as simultaneous technical, operational, and commercial readiness. And if you're not ready, it will increase your pre-opening budget. This is the payroll that you have and the marketing expenses. Persons like myself cannot move on to the next project. You will be mentioned again in the social media, which is not good for your brand, of course. Forecasts were made about how much revenue a hotel company would make, revenue disruptions, and then, of course, the opportunity cost. Now, the sample that I just showed you, on average, in those 45 weeks, had a pre-opening budget overrun of 35%. And in those 45 weeks, if the hotel would have opened on time, the individual hotel owners would have earned $15 million through the sales of rooms, meals in the restaurants, and meetings and weddings in the meeting facilities. The operators as well, they lost a lot of money. Again, in those 45 weeks alone, they would have earned $850,000 in management fees and incentive fees. So a management fees is what a management company charges on the total revenue, and an incentive fee is a percentage of the gross operating profit. This chart here compares the growth pattern of China versus the growth pattern of the United States. China currently, I estimate, has 2.8 million hotel rooms. That number will grow to 6.1 by 2025. And by 2039, China will reach 9.1 million rooms. That's about the time that I will take my retirement. So a number of differences with the US, of course. And the first one is that the growth in the US started way earlier, and therefore it is less steep. It started actually in the 1950s when President Eisenhower signed the Highway Act. And with building the Highway Act, you needed to stay overnight. Accommodation was not very good from state to state. And this is the success story of Holiday Inn Express. Clemens Wilson just followed the highway expansion and built franchised Holiday Inns from coast to coast. Several big hotel companies became big not by building hotels, but by buying other hotel companies. And the most recent example, of course, is the acquisition of Starwood Hotels and Resorts by Marriott International. Now, the bulk of the hotel openings in China and in Asia will be achieved by brick and mortar. Another interesting fact is that in North America, which includes Canada and Mexico, about 66% of the total room inventory is branded. And that is 22% in Asia only. That percentage, that trend is changing because, of course, it makes sense to be affiliated with a booking engine because it will fill your hotel. What you see here is what I got from the internet and from the annual tax reports to demonstrate what the growth plans are of, let's say, the 6 biggest hotel companies in the world. Not going to read that out, but as you can see, they all have considerable pipelines in Asia Pacific and notably in China. And I see those CEOs on CNBC Squawk Box, and it goes like this. I'm going to sign 100 new contracts this year in India. I'm going to open 250 hotels in China. And the first question that I have is, well, if you're an international company, how do you convince individual owners to sign a contract with you? But I'm not in the business of development, so I struck that out. The second question that I have is, if you make those kind of statements, how can you execute such aggressive growth plans? And finally, and this is where it really becomes the problem of people like myself, once we have signed those contracts and have a contractual obligation, how can you open 100 or 500 hotels effectively and efficiently and in a consistent and predictable manner, meaning we always open on time and on brand? So what you see here, and this is going to be in the last presentations of today, we're going to talk about the project life cycle for a new hotel. Now, since you're all studying project management, the concept of project life cycle you are for sure familiar with. Here you see an industry application for a new hotel project. And Glenn explained to me that it's all about integration, of course. What happens in the hotel industry, however, this is like a relay. Every single phase that is interdependent with the preceding and the phases afterwards actually is not integrating its efforts. And it's more like a relay, whereby one person runs around the court and then hands over the baton to the next person. And just as an example, an interior designer would not be able to do the design job properly if there is no input, for example, from the pre-opening team and from the hotel operator. So what I can tell you about the status quo of the hotel industry, project management methodology and standards, we simply don't use them. We think we use project management because we call our schedule a critical path. There's a misunderstanding there about that as well, but we think we do project management because of it. And because we use Microsoft Project, we are experts in project management. Now, the all-important project management process groups of initiating, planning, through to closing are not applied. And as I will show you later, we basically parachute in people that then hit the ground running without initiating and without planning. Project management body of knowledge areas are not applied. And I'll give you one example. In the hotel industry, we really like saying so many things can go wrong that we would not have known about. I will demonstrate later to you that actually project life cycle for new hotels is predictive. A hotel opening is a hotel opening is a hotel opening. The only thing that changes is complexity from 2-star to 5-star, but the processes involved in each phase remain identical. So if we were to apply project risk management and see what possibly could go wrong and develop a strategy for that, our forecast would be more accurate. And I'll pause here and give you a real life example. I've worked in Asia since 1993, a number of years in China. And the thing in China is if the project manager said that there is no problem, you should worry because there is a problem. It's just not in the culture to disclose problems. You wait for, hopefully, for those problems to go away, which of course does not happen. So when I was at Wyndham, opening hotels and signing contracts was of paramount importance, not so much the guest satisfaction, because signing new contracts, opening hotels, that is what Wall Street wanted to hear. So one day my managing director called me and said, these 2 hotels are each 500 rooms. Are they going to open by the end of the year? And I told him, I said, not this year, not next year, maybe the year after. Okay, so he called someone from technical services and asked the same question. Do you think they can open? And the person said, oh yes, boss, we think that they can open. And I said, look, you're new. I've been following this project for a couple of years. Yes, if tomorrow there's 500 workers on site, and if they get the cash, they could pull it off. But looking at their decision making, their cash flow, they're not going to make it. So, boss, do yourself a favor, move these out and try to find alternative deals. He excused the technical service guy and me straight to my face that I needed to stop being so negative. Well, 6 months later, it's now October. It was panic stations because those two projects were not going to make it, and he needed to make up for a gap in the predicted number of rooms of 1,000 rooms, and that is not possible in October. Shortly after, that person was terminated because he didn't hit his numbers. Through project risk management, he would have been able to find new deals ahead of time and be a hero. All right, so what we need to understand is that if companies like Marriott say we have 10,000 hotels, it's not Marriott. The hotel company themselves does not own physical real estate. They're asset light. So it is a local owner in Australia, in China, in South Africa, or in America that puts up the money and builds this hotel with the assistance of a brand company. But since Marriott does not own real estate, they have no control over the construction, over the budget. They can try to influence. The relationship between the owner of the asset with the management company is based on a technical service agreement and either a hotel management or a franchise agreement together with a trademark license agreement. And a funny anecdote is that if you look very closely at the hotel management agreement of IHG, it clearly says in there that the hotel developer will, at his or her expense, hire a professional project manager in order to manage the hotel project. But because it's not understood by the owner and because companies like IHG don't understand, this clause is not enforced. I asked for it, but the answer that I got was, don't push, it's bad for the relationship. So, in the end, how do we open hotels? Well, the opening efforts are actually driven by corporate office, supported by the hotel general manager, a property-based task force, which means that we borrow a reception head and a chief accountant and an executive chef from another hotel to work with the pre-opening team. And a corporate pre-opening support function, which was my role to help the owner and the general manager manage the pre-opening plan. So this approach worked in the good old days when we would open 5 to 10 hotels per year, but when we moved to 50 to 100 hotels per year, it didn't work any longer, simply because there were not enough people in the existing hotels to borrow staff from. And second, they are not the management company staff, they're the staff of the local hotel owner. And of course, they need to give their permission before they are willing to send, and we need to pay for that. People that stay behind, they are stuck with a lot more work. Someone else had a smart idea and said, let's do a permanent task force. So someone like myself would go from project to project. And that might work if you open one hotel on average every year, but first 3 months of the year, nothing happens, and then everything piles up towards the end of the year. So that didn't work. So what typically happens is we put a general manager as a figure of speech in an airplane, fly over the hotel, throw him out with a parachute, and then this person, and I really dislike this expression, hits the ground running. And in the end, as soon as he arrives, he or she will be pulled in design meetings, construction meetings, all of the subjects that he or she is not trained in. And instead of being in the pre-opening office working on recruitment and training and sales and marketing. So let's just agree that there is a big difference between managing a project and managing ongoing hotel operations. Now, where it goes wrong is here, I think. It says new hotel project and hotel general manager. It both has the word hotel, so that sounds all right. Let me demonstrate that to you. And of course, this is not a hospitality class, so you will all go like, yeah, duh, that makes perfect sense. But I'll share with you what I tell hospitality people. So we do this in another industry. Airline captain, aeronautical engineer. The captain flies the plane and the aeronautical engineer designs it. Let's swap them. And all of you, if your microphones would not be on mute or if this was in class, you would say, Are you insane because they are not qualified? And that is exactly my point. Someone who studied hotel sales and marketing and hotel accounting, food and beverage and room division, is not qualified to run a 25 million US dollar new hotel project. So we conducted interviews with about 80 hospitality professionals, managing directors, presidents, CEOs, hotel owners, and some general managers. What we wanted was to understand how international hotel companies go about opening hotels in the Greater China region. What we also wanted to understand is what is causing all these delays. See, as you can see, this is research that I did in 2014. To me, that was the only measurement of project success. Was it on time, yes or no? Now, the people that we spoke with worked for one of 15 regional and international hotel companies. And here is what I can tell you about them. None of them were expert in the field of project management. They did not know about the methodology. None of them had actually received any formal project management training. And at that point, I had only come as far as an eCornell online course about project leadership. None of the people that we spoke with had ever experienced a hotel opening that had been on time, either as the target opening date in the hotel agreement, management agreement, or the target opening date at the starting date of the general manager. Nobody that we spoke with had any type of CAPM or PMP certification, and only one person we spoke with had been certified by the PMI in the past. This was not a hotel person, but actually someone with an engineering background. About 95% of the people we spoke with had never even heard of the Project Management Institute. That includes me, by the way, before I did this survey. Now, what I can tell you about the hotel management companies is that only 2 out of 15 had a dedicated hotel opening support function. And mind you, hotel opening support function is me working with the GM in the pre-opening phase. It's applied project management in 1 out of 15 phases. That is, of course, not the same thing as project managing the entire project lifecycle for a new hotel. None of the hotel management companies actually had hired any certified project managers. None of those hotel management companies even had a PMO or a strategic PMO in order to help owners with the methodology. We asked the people 2 questions. And the first question was, how does your company go about hotel opening processes? And the second question was, in your personal opinion, what is causing these new hotel openings to be delayed? Now, these 81 people gave us over 800 points, which we sorted out into 51 subcategories, and which we then sorted out into 10 little buckets. We then applied a Pareto analysis in order to rank them in order of importance, and this is what came out of it. 38% blamed the delays on hotel design and construction. 24% blamed it on the hotel owner, 10% on the hotel operator, 8% on pre-opening activities and operational readiness, and 4% blamed it on procurement. What we did next was we applied a root cause analysis in order to understand what was really happening. And step 1 was to look again at the subcategories and the categories and make a determination as to what is a direct cause and what is an intermediate cause. And I'll give you an example of both. A direct cause in a hotel opening delay would be you did not get your fire life safety license, or your bed boxes and your mattresses were not delivered. If you don't have those, you can't open. Intermediate cause is something that you failed to do today, and you won't feel the pain tomorrow, next week, next month, but it will eventually delay the opening. And the typical example is, I always talk about the key milestone in a hotel opening is the down payment for the operating equipment and supplies. So delaying the onboarding of your purchasing manager will delay the start of making that list, the down payment, and then the delivery. It takes about 4 to 6 months to produce your towels with your hotel logo. Okay, so today nothing happens, but at the end of the pre-opening phase, you won't have your towels. So that is an intermediate cause. Next is we applied the 5 whys technique to understand what is causing all this. And I'll show you one of the main vectors in one of the next slides. The third step was to actually formulate the root causes, which we were able to do. And we took all that information and we plugged it into a nice little map with the sequence of events, factors, and we indicated the relationship between all those direct, intermediate, and root causes. And this is what came out of it. My colleagues have dubbed this the spaghetti chart. It's a little bit hard to read, but let me run you through it. At the bottom, you see 3 levels of colored boxes. The colored boxes represent what people think is causing these hotel openings to be delayed, so direct and intermediate causes. At the very top, you see 3 boxes, A, B, and C, and these are the root causes. And the key point to understand here is that between what people think is happening and what is actually happening is 6 levels of difference. And a crude way to explain it is that this is a patient that is very sick. This patient requires surgery. But instead of wheeling this patient to the operating theater, we give this patient aspirin. And of course, the patient is not getting better. And the next patient, it will be the same case. So in conclusion about the root cause analysis is that 4 sets of the perceived causes are actually direct causes. They include delays in concept, design, construction, and handover, delays in pre-opening activities and poor execution, delays in procurement process, and non-compliance with the brand standards, which is when the brand police from the hotel company flies in, says you're missing these hallmarks, you can't open. Of course, that was avoidable by planning that inspection earlier and communicating in time those hallmarks with the vendors that sell them. The remaining 6 sets of perceived causes are actually intermediate causes. Now, the actual root causes are, and there's only 3, project investment motivation. I have personally opened over 30 hotels, and in every single project I ask the hotel owner, why are you doing this? The answer that we should get is, because we want to invest 10 million, sell it in 10 years, and earn 15 million. I only heard that reason, return on investment, once. Most of the time it's like, I'm rich, I can afford it, or my wife is bored, she needs a hobby, or my competitor has a big hotel, I need a bigger hotel. So project invest motivation. The second is the hospitality industry, whether this is owner or operator, does not seem to have a project management culture. And the final root cause is the management company modus operandi, the way hotel management companies go about running their day-to-day business. Delays, we found out, can happen because of one, some, or all of the above reasons. Unfortunately, sadly, none of these root causes were identified by any of the 80 people that we spoke with. Okay, let's pretend that we just finished a hotel opening. It was late and we did a very bad job, okay, poor execution. So we're going to do something that the hotel industry does not do, which is a post-project review. All right, so guys, why were we late? You know, Gert, it's because the general manager and his team were on board late. Okay, why were they late? Well, between the owner and ourselves, we did not agree on the opening date and we did not agree on the process, right? That goes back to, I think the purchasing manager should start 6 to 8 months in advance. And then the owner will say, oh, I don't think so. I think 3 months is enough. Okay, well, why did we not agree on the opening date? Because the owner doesn't understand. Okay, why does the owner not understand? I mean, we're a hotel company. We have done this multiple times. There must be a pamphlet or a document or a manual or a procedure that explains to the owner what the process is. And I would say that's your project management plan. We didn't have that. Okay, why did you not have a project management plan? Well, there was no one to do that because the general manager doesn't know, right? And that would be your project manager. Why don't we have a project manager? Well, that's not part of our methodology, right? And mind you, there's a big difference, of course, between an operations methodology and a project management methodology. Final question, why don't we have a project management methodology? That's not the way we do things. And that is, of course, your project management culture. So between delays in pre-opening activities all the way through to no project management culture is about 6 levels of difference. But we keep on talking in the hotel industry about the GM was on board late. And we're going to have that same problem in the next opening and the next opening and the next opening. All right. What I frequently hear is, well, so what if hotel openings are delayed? And Carmel, this refers to what we chatted about before the session started, right? If it doesn't open, it doesn't cost any money. PMI, Pulse of the Profession, I'm sure that you're all familiar with it, says out of $1 billion invested, 114 million US dollar goes into the garbage bin. Project success rate, 92% for those companies that apply, and only 33% for the companies that don't apply. And I translate that for the hotel industry. This means that 2 out of 3 new hotel openings actually fail. Oh, that's not acceptable. Of course. But there's nothing we can do about it because it's the owner's problem. Okay. What I did then was I went to the 10K reports, which is the annual tax reports of the hotel companies, the top 10 international hotel companies. And the numbers that I extracted from there is that those 10 companies, this is your Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Accor, and a couple of others, are controlling or influencing 8,000 new hotel projects, which is good for 1.2 million rooms. And remember, the global development pipeline is 15,000 for 2.45 million rooms. So 10 companies control, influence half of the global development portfolio without any project managers, any strategic PMO, etc. Now, if we multiply each of those projects with a very conservative 15 million US dollar, we get a fixed asset worth of 120 billion US dollar. And extrapolating from the PMI statistics, which means that 13.7 billion is at risk. I went a step further as well, and I extrapolated from my own study. Remember, 15 million US dollar in opportunity cost for the operator and 850,000 for the operator. Sorry, the other way around. And if we multiply that by those 8,000 projects, we are looking at a combined 127 billion owner-operator opportunity cost. But because that money was not in our pocket yet, the perception is we didn't really lose. My opinion is that if you would have opened those hotels on time, you would have made this. Or if you would have made effort to reduce those delays, you would have earned half of this. All right, so what I tell people in hospitality conferences and at hotel schools is that a hotel opening is in fact a project. And using a standardized project management methodology will go down very well if you need to open a large number of hotels. And let me just make a quick comment there on what does large scale mean. For a company like Marriott, opening 1,000 new hotels a year is large scale. For a smaller company, like let's say Mandarin Oriental, who have 20 hotels, to open 5 hotels, proportionate to their current system size, that is also large scale. Processes in each hotel opening are virtually identical. The general manager always gets hired before the dishwasher. Although very recently I wrapped up a resort opening in the Philippines, and the owner had hired all the staff before the general manager was actually had been recruited. And because hotel openings are the same, you can standardize your critical path for 5, 4, 3, and 2-star hotels. You can standardize your pre-opening budget. You can standardize your FF&E and your operating equipment and supplies list. What I do here, though, they throw this at me, but you know, Gert, you've never done true luxury as an opening, which is true. The most impressive brand that I've done, probably Crowne Plaza. I've never done a Shangri-La or a Ritz-Carlton. But break it down. For a 2-star Ibis, I would have to order 1 type of knife, spoon, and fork, probably from a mandated vendor. For a 5-star Sofitel with 10 restaurants, we'd probably buy 100 types of knives, spoons, and forks. I'd probably need to make a tabletop, and it would take 2 months. But the line item in your project schedule is buy stuff for the hotel. And by the way, opening a Crowne Plaza was easier than opening an Ibis because you have a bigger management team, higher room rates, which allows you to hire more qualified, more experienced people. So as an industry, if we want to open 15,000 new hotels effectively, we will need to upgrade our understanding of what is project management and how to apply the methodology, the tools, and the techniques. Couple of points though, easier said than done. First of all is the hotel industry is not linking the delays to the absence of a project management culture and the use of project management methodology. what the industry perceives is causing these delays are actually only the symptoms of more deep-seated systemic problems. So to improve, what I would propose to hotel companies is to have a look at the 5 building blocks in order to improve your new hotel project performance. So what you can see at the top is doing better hotels, of course, project performance improvement. And all you need to do really is apply a project management methodology and buy the standards manual from the PMI, the PMBOK. Okay, easier said than done, because before you can do that effectively, we will need to work on culture, organization, and education. And what I can share with you is a real life example of where this is very hard. So Wyndham Hotel Group is a franchisor. Most of their hotels are franchised. They wanted to move into China and do managed hotels. They did not understand China, and they did not really understand how to do a management contract. So could I please set up the system? The PM part was actually quite easy, but the whole culture of the company was like franchise, meaning we give the owner access to standards and they do it by themselves, which is not the case under contract. On top of that, it was like, Gert, you're in charge of pre-openings, so this is your problem. And I was like, no, we all have a role to play. And to get that through to everyone, that it was a team effort and that everyone had to contribute, that took 1.5 years. Organization. I was reporting to someone behind the desk in Parsippany, New Jersey, on a different time zone, who had no idea about local cultural sensitivities or what is important for, let's say, a Chinese owner or an Indonesian owner, right? And that needed to be decentralized, and that took a year. We needed to talk about having brand standard manuals translated, because that was just not the way we did things at the time. And finally, education. As an industry, we spent billions of dollars training people to better manage the hotel, whether that is revenue management or sales and marketing or finance or culinary arts. And we spent $0 on training people how to better open hotels. That would be project management, of course. So, number of challenges that I am facing when I'm talking with hotel companies about project management. There's a limited understanding of project management as a strategic competence. It's really about, we don't do construction management. Neither do I, by the way. I get very often called in when the project is already off track, rather than starting to do today what will benefit the company in 2.5 years' time and ensure smooth sailing for the next 10. The hotel industry has very few project management champions, and I can't think of any hotel company here in Asia that has a certified project manager. Hotel management companies are traditionally very conservative. It takes them about 10 years to embrace a new management technique. And I'll validate that statement with an example. Revenue management was invented by American Airlines when the US government deregularized the US airspace. And all of a sudden, they needed to compete for previously protected routes. So instantly, other airlines took that over, and car rentals and timeshare, except the hospitality industry. 10 years later, Bill Marriott was seated next to the president of American Airlines, thought that was great, brought it to Marriott, and by better managing rates and inventory, was able to generate $30 million extra in 1 year. And then it took another 10 years for all other hotel companies to implement revenue management. Second example is total quality management, which you're very familiar with, of course, invented by Motorola. Jack Welch from GE visited Motorola, brought TQM back. Instantly, other companies, other industries started to embrace that, again, except the hotel industry. And it was 10 years later, after the success of GE, that Barry Sternlicht, the then boss of Starwood Hotels and Resorts, hired a new COO from outside the hospitality industry. And up to that point, the way that complaints about, let's say, your air conditioning were handled was send the guest a fruit basket. But of course, that does not solve the problem. And this gentleman, John Cotter, implemented Six Sigma at Starwood. And from that point onward, it took another 10 years for the hotel industry to implemented across all companies. So we are conservative. Now, mind you, I've been doing this for about 5 years, so only 5 more years before the first hotel company will implement project management. One more, which is very important. Hotel companies are set up as functional organizations rather than matrix. And when you're running a company day to day, to have sales and marketing separated from, let's say, operations, it's a good thing. But if I need to talk to your boss, who will talk to you, or if I have to talk to my boss, who will talk to your boss, and then your boss talks to you and then back in order to get something done, it does not work in a conducive for the hotel opening, of course. And finally, again, there's a general misunderstanding in the industry as to what is causing new hotel openings to be delayed. All right, we have a number of industry challenges. There are some internal roadblocks. They are on the next slide. I won't be going through them, but you will be shared this deck. I will send them to Glenn on PDF, and he will make them available probably on Blackboard. The second one is there are a number of implementation challenges. There is the knowing-doing gap of project management. It has been well researched, but still in the hotel industry, you ask a CEO, what is your vision, what is your strategy? They know what they want to achieve. The best resort company or the biggest hotel operator in a specific continent. When you ask them, how are you going to achieve that vision? They don't know. And that is, of course, the execution part, which is done through project management. And finally, the difficulty of selling project management to senior leadership. When I'm talking with a hotel company CEO, I know I can help the company, but you need to give us half a year to assess the maturity level of a hotel management company, and then a solid 2 years in order to implement the methodology, the standards, culture, organization, and education. And what they all ask me, especially the American companies, is, hey, buddy, what can you do for me for the next quarterly earnings or year end? You know, low-hanging fruit. Well, I can't do anything for you. Or they call me when everything has already gone wrong and it's 3 months to the opening. Again, the hotel is built. What do you want me to change? You know, it's gonna further delay. So senior leadership is looking at this short-term, tactical, and I'm looking at this strategically, long-term. Okay, internal roadblock, I will spare you that, but let's talk about this. And this slide, actually, I shared it with the CFO of Wyndham Hotel Group, who came from the US to Hong Kong, and asked me, so what do you do here? You're the guy who opens hotels, right? I said, well, I'm indeed opening hotels. I also establish methodology to open more than one hotel at the same time. And I'm here to make sure that we do not lose on our share price. He said, how so? So what would have been a friendly chit-chat actually became an interesting strategic discussion of an hour and a half. And this is what I showed him. There's no studies really for the hotel industry, but I got this one from the IT industry. And there was a gentleman who wrote a book on it, who basically researched IT projects that were getting hammered in the press because they were not doing very well. And he correlated the bad press with the share price. Mind you, this is before Yahoo Finance. And what his conclusion was is that while they were getting bad press, those companies lost between 20 to 90% of their stock price. 7 firms in that sample, including one hotel company that was actually rolling out a global reservation system, which was really not going well, lost an average of 59% of their stock value while they were being hammered. It was also calculated that if they would have applied project management, their average earnings would have gone up by 6%. So my pitch to the CFO was, if you do apply project management to your new hotel opening projects, at least you will maintain your share price and possibly improve on it. Didn't go anywhere. So in recap, hotel openings in Asia Pacific are very frequently delayed. And in my view, it is self-inflicted. Hoteliers are not linking the delay with a lack of project management culture. There are a number of industry challenges, granted, but the solution is not rocket science and has been applied in many other industries. I believe 85, except the hospitality industry. All right, Glenn, that was the first part, the problem. Let's pause there for a second and see if there's one or two questions.
So if you if you have a question right now, just type it into the chat box, and we'll give Gert an opportunity to be able to provide answers. Just while we're waiting for people to write, can you explain what the term branded means? When you say branded hotel rooms, I haven't come across that terminology before. What's that mean?
Branded means that you have entered into a trademark license agreement with a franchisor. So you would sign a contract, for example, with Intercontinental Hotels Group for either an Interconti brand or Crown Plaza, Indigo, Holiday Inn, Holiday Inn Express. That means branded. If not, it is your typical, your local pub that has a hotel, or your papa and mom run bed and breakfast. That is non-branded. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. You actually said that, and I thought, well, I'm not sure. I don't know what that means. Any other questions so far for Gert? Did you want to have a glass of water or something, Gert? Okay.
I'm good. We'll do one more, and then we'll allow people for a ciggy or a cup of tea.
Okay.
All right. So the next presentation.
Carmel, that's not a question.
No, I know, that's just a comment. Comment. I'm allowed.
Oh, okay. There is a question from Malik, Gert.
There is a question? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, let me stop sharing.
What's your take on brands like Airbnb and OYO?
Haha. Okay. First of all, Airbnb is not a brand. Okay, it's basically a reservation platform for people that have a spare bedroom or a spare apartment. OYO, there was a lot of hype about it. They grew very fast. What we see now is that things start to fall apart a tiny little bit. And maybe what they should have done was build their project management structure first. Yeah. So that's all I will say about OYO. What I will also say about Airbnb, and this is important to point out, I don't think that Airbnb is a threat to the hospitality industry. Let's say 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, before AirAsia and other low-cost carriers came online, the perception of people, and it was wrong, was, oh, AirAsia is going to kill the entire airline industry. And actually, it was not. The full-service airlines still cater to people that could afford it. And having low-cost carriers actually opened up a whole new market segment, which gave rise to targeted services hotels, right? So just a comment there.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Gert, if you're good to go ahead, let's go. Oh, sorry. Nicholas has asked, if we have a chance to be part of a hotel pre-opening, any role in front or the back of the house would you strongly recommend? Can you read that, Gert? Does that make sense to you? If we have a chance to be part of a hotel pre-opening, would you strongly recommend? Oh, so Nicholas, what?
Nicholas, my email address is in the presentation. Drop me an email what you're looking for, because that is very contextual and very personal, of course, what you want to achieve. I could share my career path, but that is very personal. That is very me. That doesn't mean it's a recipe for success. What I can say as a generic comment for everybody, if you are considering a career in pure hotel opening management, and I'm not talking about project management of the construction, but really you want to help hotels manage those last 18 months. For you to be more effective, I would say go and work in a hotel for about 2 years and learn everything there is to learn about the operation. I think that has been part of what makes me effective, because I can have discussions with executive chefs, reservation managers, sales and marketing managers, human resources managers, because I've been on the other side. Yeah. Okay, last question from Kevin, then we'll move on. I guess Six Sigma could be applied in the facilities section through any defects when preparing the opening. Then how Six Sigma could be applied when you prepare hotel staff members for the opening? Good question. Well, basically, this is all templated, Kevin, and it starts basically when we have done the conceptual planning and done the interior design. We'll come to that in the next decks. One of those things that we would do is very applied a mock-up room, and that mock-up room would be built as if someone could check in, including the towels, etc. Then we double lock it, and when we start to take over the hotel, meaning the project transitions from the contractor to operator, I go into every room with the team and I put little stickers on every defect, and we benchmark against that mock-up room. Okay. Yeah.
There's another 2 questions there, Gert.
Let's take them.
Another 3 questions. So there you go. I think Carmel's making a statement, not a question. But Geraldine, why is the ROI of so little importance? Why do you think this is not a consideration to the asset hotel owners?
Geraldine, an excellent question. And being in a project management class, you might all be baffled. This is very simple. It's not even something that I think, it is something that I know and that has been demonstrated. It is the biggest area of friction in the hospitality industry. On the one end, you have the hotel owners, the developers, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have the operator. Their strategic objectives are completely opposite. The owner wants ROI, the operator wants to sign contracts and grow the system size, because that translates into better share prices. Now, here is the thing. Most owners that I've worked with do not understand the hospitality industry. Okay, they're very successful in what they do: steel, oil, noodles, anything, but not hotels. So they're going to make mistakes. The obvious solution would be for hotel management companies to help hotel owners in this is how you do it. We don't, because it's not important to us, and here is why. A hotel management agreement states that you will get your pound of flesh. The hotel will be run by Marriott, Hilton, or IHG for 10 years from the commencement date. So that means that we open for paying guests. So it takes you 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. It's not my money. I will get my 10 years of management fees anyway. And by the way, you have paid me $500,000 upfront for technical service fees, a commitment fee, and probably for your trademark license agreement. So that is why we don't really talk about ROI, partly because the owners don't know, and partly because the operators are not helping owners to understand. Yeah.
Do hotels insource their procurement or outsource to procurement specialists?
United States, they outsource. You do join a network like Wyndham Hotel Group, because Wyndham Hotel Group has 8,000 hotels in North America, and you get absolute rock bottom price. Plus another thing, you run a 40-room Super 8. You can't hire your own PR manager and do your business cards and print them locally, because you run 40 rooms. Why do you need 100 boxes of business cards? Wyndham says, no problem. We will make one contract. You insert your name, your address in a website, and our vendor, our preferred vendor, will FedEx you one box of business cards. So that works in North America. Across Asia, basically, there is a distrust towards procurement specialists, and it is very cost-centric. Oh, but I can find someone who can do it cheaper for $1. Sure, but it will take them two months longer to produce, and thereby we delay the opening and we lose money. So it's that cost centricity versus opportunity cost centricity. Good questions, guys.
Carmel asked, is hotels about cash flow?
It should be. It should be. But Carmel, hold that thought, please, because what I'm going to explain next is the 15 phases of the hotel project life cycle, and owners bypass everything that has to do, all the phases that will ensure cash flow. They go straight to I would almost say the sexy thing, which is architecture, my little model of the hotel, the fly-through video, the 3D renderings, and I want a Ritz-Carlton. Okay, well, for a Ritz-Carlton, the rate that you should charge is about 500 US. You are in a location where you can maximum charge 50 US. Ah, but I want it. They're no different than my kids at Toys R Us. You know, they lose all sense of being reasonable when there. Yeah, we lost Carmel, by the way. All right, Glenn, do I take the last question or move on?
Yeah, well, and we'll probably hold questions then. So if you can just make a comment on Kevin's question, he's talking about Six Sigma, and can you read that, or do you want me to read that out to you?
I got it right here. Okay. What is the success measure for the product? 3 to 4 Sigma. Haha, that is very good. I would not know the answer because it really depends on how thorough and disciplined a person like myself is to do that. No one will say anything if, for example, the sockets are not completely straight. So we do use Six Sigma or TQM for the operations part. We do not apply it during the pre-opening, and that is the same thing. Everything in the hospitality industry is benchmarked. I'll show you that later. We measure the average daily rate, the occupancy, staff satisfaction, guest satisfaction, staff engagement, everything. But the only measurement we use really for the hotel opening is you will open the hotel within this year, Kevin. Do you hear me? Because if you open the hotel, I get my bonus and you get your bonus. And we don't really look at brand creep, scope creep, etc. and budget overrun. Only one measure. Yeah, this might sound good to the people in this class, Glenn. Normally, I don't get those kind of questions because it's like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that a delay actually there was an opportunity cost. But this is, of course, not a hospitality class.
No, all right. And for the rest, can we just hold the questions now, and we'll resume taking questions later on. We'll hand back to you, Gert, and take us to the next place.
Can you see my screen, Glenn? It should say project lifecycle for new hotels. Is that correct?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thanks. All right, so what I'm going to explain now is a little bit about the characteristics of new hotel project life cycles. I don't need to explain here what the concept of the project life cycle is. So it's about understanding that the hotel asset life cycle and the project life cycle within. The asset life cycle is understood in the hospitality industry, but only from the moment it opens. What I normally would explain is that, look guys, it's not a relay match. The hotel asset life cycle and all the interdependencies, it makes it holistic. What I would like to share with you is in which phases hotel companies are more involved than in others, okay? And this is not for you understanding the strategic importance of the asset life cycle. So the current status quo in hotel developments is it's about interdependent, but actually non-integrated phases, whereby an owner will appoint separate companies, separate entities to design, build, open, and operate each new hotel. Very often, when I speak about project management, I'm more talking about the integration between those phases, like an interior designer cannot do his or her work without the input from Accor for the Novotel brand. They think I'm talking about construction management. Now, the delays that we see and in the hotel industry basically suggest that the phases in that project life cycle are actually planned and executed independently. It's like I do my work, I don't care what happens before and after, and then I hand it over. And as a consequence, of course, we miss opportunities for integration and for synergies. And what happens very often is that I get my marching orders as a GM from the chairperson. And the chairperson says, you must open before the 1st of October. That is a national holiday in China. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I will make it happen. So 2 months in advance, I onboard 500 staff and I start training. Then I ask for the handover and it turns out there is a delay. What does not happen is that upon my arrival, we schedule a weekly meeting with the construction team and the interior design team and the people doing the fit out in order to have that review, as in how far are you off? Can we start applying for the licenses? Should we go no-go for mass recruitment? Because if there is a delay, the last thing that I want is having 500 people on my payroll. So the way I compare hotel openings is we try to land 50 airplanes without the benefit of a control tower. And obviously, the outcome is predictable. They're going to crash. The missing component, what I explained to hoteliers, is that control tower, a PMO, in order to coordinate, integrate, facilitate, and communicate everything we're doing in all of those phases, and between stakeholders, of course. Okay, PMO, I guess that is understood. Now, I won't ask you the trick question, but hospitality people do give me not wrong answer, but it's also not right. If I ask what is a hotel, the typical answer is it's a place where people can sleep and eat when they're away from home. The actual definition is that it is a specialist asset class that requires active and focused oversight. And if you do that well, statistically, it has been proven that if you buy it, develop it, run it, and sell it at the right time, it will give you better returns than, let's say, an office building. Now, opening a new hotel versus operating it, it involves, as we pointed out, different management systems and skill sets. Okay, sorry, that was not my definition, by the way, but that does come from Collier International. So what you see here, and in the next three decks, we will go phase by phase. This is the project life cycle for a new hotel. And at the bottom, you have the operation and maintenance. This is the 10 or 15 years that we're going to run it. But you have to appreciate, as a hotelier, all the work that is done before you can get to that point. But it's those 15 phases before that happen in 2, 3, 4 years, maybe 5, that will make or break the success of the hotel. If you forget the elevator for room service, for the next 25 years, that waiter has to go through the lobby with his trolley in order to get to the service elevator. So, project life cycles for new hotels, obviously, is the structure underpinning the delivery of new hotel projects. And it's not really about the design phase, the stuff that is visible. Okay, conceptual model defining the interrelated phases of new hotel projects. I guess you can all find yourself well within this, but these are revelations to people in the hotel industry. And because we have a project life cycle, we are better able to manage the progression of the work. Okay, so I was at a conference once with one of my colleagues. He is an entrepreneur and a project manager and an academic. He taught project management at Harvard Business School. And there was a general manager in the audience who said, but you know, there's so much stuff that we couldn't have known about, and that goes wrong. And my colleague got up and he started saying in a whining voice, you know, it's gonna rain, there's nothing we can do about it. But you can bring an umbrella. And where he was getting at was a hotel opening or a hotel project has very little uncertainty. Yes, there are risks, but we know, or we should know, about those risks. Project life cycles for new hotels are predictive. The product and the services that we are going to deliver, we understand them extremely well. If I would ask you, do you know what an ibis is? Most of you probably have stayed or passed by or had a coffee in an ibis. You know what it is. It's a 2-star hotel with limited services, limited facilities, and I bet you that Accor has full brand standards for everything from concept development through to design, construction, and operation. It's all there. Substantial base of industry practice. We've done this literally millions of times. It's not the first time. This is not like developing a new medicine or designing a new airplane. Then, scope and the time and cost that we require to deliver that scope are decided very early on in the project. And this is for simple, practical reasons that if I say it, you will say, yeah, of course. First of all, before you can build a hotel, you need to go to the government. You need to submit your building plans, detailed, and your business plan, so that this does not become an economic problem for the city or the bank at a later stage. And at the same time, most likely you are going to borrow from the bank, and the bank also wants to know what exactly are you going to build. Is it not a big dream, you know, that you're not going to earn your money back? So we know all that in advance before we even start piling. Now, the work performed in each phase is different in nature than what happens in the phase before and after. And therefore, the teams and the skills of those team members vary. And the best way to explain it is the architect works in his office and the construction team works on site in a pit. Now, again, and I cannot stress this enough with hotel people, the phases involved in any new hotel project are virtually identical, which means that everything from room design to pre-opening budget to training plans can be standardized. It's very easy, actually. What I tell students at hotel schools when I am sharing about hotel openings, a hotel opening is actually very, very simple. It is just a ton of work, a heap of work in a very short period of time. Okay, where you as a project manager would be interacting with a hotel management company would be in the brand and operator selection. Okay, this is when we make a decision about what would be the brand, what would be the operator. I'll come back to that one. Content selection. The more famous the brand, I would say, the more demanding they are. If you build a Holiday Inn, IHG does not really care who your interior designer is. They'll give the brand standards, the interior designer will probably follow, and IHG will sign off. On the other hand, if you want, let's say, Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, they will tell you, here are 5 architects and 5 interior designers that you can choose from. And if you don't want to, you're not getting a contract. They might dictate up to the brand of the plates and the glassware and the cutlery, what pillows and what mattresses go into the guest rooms. Architecture, I think I just explained that. Interior design and engineering as well. Engineering, this ties in, of course, with liability. They will limit the number of brands, for example, that you could use for your elevators. Pre-opening phase, you would definitely be interacting a lot with the hotel company, because this is where the general manager comes on board and where a host of corporate office people will come in order to open a hotel, from loyalty program to sales and marketing, reservations, system training, etc. And all that work, of course, needs to be integrated. Small point there is, I shared it with someone this morning who called me about, can you help with a hotel opening? And we have this operator who's telling us what to do. An operator is a vendor that needs to be managed as such, but it seems to me that quite often they are like a little satellite evolving around Planet Hotel project, shooting off instructions as to what they want and getting paid. And that does not work, of course. This is like a rugby team, you know, the players. There is the scrum half who stands behind screaming what the game plan is, and everyone needs to follow, right? Post-opening phase still. Okay, so that is the involvement of the hotel management company. Now, the modus operandi of the hotel management company is that the developer, that is the hotel owner most likely, will hire consultants. Sometimes these are mandated or recommended, preferred by the hotel operator. The operator then gives you a whole set of brand standards and their expertise on how to apply those brand standards. They will tell you, for example, the climate in your region is in this way, and therefore we recommend that your cooling system is done in that way. We recommend that you put double glazed window because you're near an airport. That kind of expertise is provided. And of course, they will make sure that once the hotel opens, they have what they call heads in beds. The consultants will then incorporate those system standards in their plans. The operator will then review those plans, but only from a system standards compliance perspective. So what they will say is X number of rooms, what is the room size, do we have enough elevators? That is what they look at. They will look at the brand hallmarks, but they will not look at building codes and fire life safety regulations. Again, because of legal implications. Then the operator either advises or influences only, and basically has limited responsibility and liability. A typical management contract can be anywhere between 250 to 500 pages. Okay, now this was for Carmel. This is what I mentioned earlier. Non-alignment of strategic objectives, right? It was not Carmel, it was someone else. But just one more time, owners, their objective is to operationalize the business case and to generate positive cash flow from operation, and 10 years later sell the hotel at a fat profit and disburse that profit, that gain, to the shareholders. The operators, they want to grow their hotel company and the value, and they do that through the growing the system. Okay, so you sign 100 new hotels, that will translate in an increase in the share price, and that is how it works. So the operator is a service provider that is not being managed. They fly in, but they don't report to anyone. They're an authority unto themselves. The realization of the owner investment objectives is not really important to them because they don't invest. When working for Wyndham Hotel Group, at that time they had 9,000 hotels, had as in their portfolio under franchise agreement mostly. They owned only 0.5 hotel, 1.5 out of 9,000, so no skin in the game. So, asset life cycle. First of all, there is the hotel asset life cycle, which is all of those 3 blocks that you saw from the idea up to we are selling it. And this includes 3 stages: conceptualization, delivery, and then operations and disposal. Okay, this is of course typical for any project. Now, the hotel development project life cycle includes conceptualization and the delivery stages, and it's all about, and this term is not used in the hotel industry, but it's really about operationalizing the strategic vision of the chairman. Okay, so if I break it down, and we're going to go stage by stage in the next 3 decks, is the hotel conceptualization stage is doing the right project, meaning this hotel is designed for what the customers want and what the customers want to pay. And all too often hotels are built because it's a dream with too many facilities, the room's too big, and the guests are not willing to pay for that, and you don't get your money back, of course, right? Okay, so what we do in the conceptualization stage is making sure that this is a viable hotel from a financial and economic perspective. The delivery stage, this is once we have the project charter in place, we now want to do the project right, which is first person on the job should be the project manager, who then hires all of the consultants who discuss what needs to be done in the remaining phases. Okay, and the last one, this is not really part of the course today, but I did include it just to be complete. This is when we run the hotel day to day and we sell it after 10 or 15 or 25 years. Okay, so from a hotel asset owner's perspective, this is probably an important slide. It is of strategic importance, of course, to apply a project life cycle, and it's not often done. Doing it, of course, has a number of major benefits. What I explained to an owner is you're more likely to achieve your investment objectives. You will be able to better manage risk and not have that, so many things can go wrong and we could not have known about it. This is truly cradle to grave thinking. Because we cut it up into phases, you will be familiar with this, you can properly allocate roles and make people responsible for what they do. Because we actually talk about what we are going to do and how we're going to do it before we build the hotel, it will result in a more efficient operation. Before you all came online, I was sharing with Glenn a project that I did where I was not involved for a period of 3 years. They knew about my existence, but they called me on the day it opened. And here is some of the points that I found when I did my assessment. There was no loading bay. They had forgotten the wet and the dry garbage rooms. There was no elevator for handicapped people. There was no pot wash in the kitchen. And all of that, of course, hindered the operation. And it had to be done anyway because it tied in with their star rating. So, and then finally, benchmarking. I think I mentioned that already to you. We measure everything in the hospitality industry in operations, but we don't measure how well we manage the hotel opening project, other than did you open this year? Okay, so project lifecycle for new hotels is part of the overall hotel asset lifecycle. Lifecycle is holistic of nature. Phases are interdependent. I really feel that I'm preaching to the choir for actually the first time since I'm sharing these things. And it's of strategic importance, of course, for a hotel owner, a developer, to formalize the project lifecycle and apply it to a new hotel project. Final point, operator and brand franchisor are two of the project stakeholders. In some phases they get involved, but you as the project manager must manage them. They are not managing you and telling you how the project is going to be managed. Okay, Glenn, that was just a quick explanation on project lifecycle for new hotels. So maybe 2 questions and then a quick bio stop for everybody.
So what are you saying, Gert, that was your introduction, is it?
For the project lifecycle for hotels.
Look, Stephen had a question earlier. Is a 10 to 15 year cycle based on depreciation of new assets and the associated tax breaks?
Stephen, that is such a good question. And it's only now that I'm involved with an American project developer for a resort in the Caribbean that we are looking at how do we get tax incentives and tax breaks. It's never discussed, to be very honest. It's just like, let's do a hotel because it's going to be a lot of fun, you know? So no, it's not done. I can't speak for Australia. I guess that it's probably a little bit more mature in Australia and New Zealand, but across Asia, this is not in people's mind.
Please don't rate us too highly. It may not be accurate. Any questions there for Gert before we have a break? Question for Gert: how do you document project changes to scope, cost, or timeline?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ilya. We don't. Okay. To my horror, that all important change control process is not applied. I see it time and time again. Something happens, and what we do is we just push out the opening date without looking at the impact. It's not documented. It's just either the chairman decides or the general manager decides. And this is a very hard topic to address and say you can't do that. Well, why can't I do that? It's my hotel. Just move it out. So, but that is of course only one of the I think 50 processes of the PMBOK. You should do all of that in an integrated way. But since we don't have that project management culture, since we think the measurement is time, we don't really talk about scope and cost impacts there. Yeah.
That is a good question, Ilya. Well done. Any other questions? Okay, from Kevin. Kevin's off. Thanks, Gert. Great insights. We normally see hotels from customer or hotel management perspectives. Good to see from a PM's eyes too. Good application. He's got to run. I think he plays badminton or something. Cool. Okay, well, look, we might have a break. How long do you think, Gert?
Is everyone okay with 5 minutes for coffee, cigarettes, bio stop? Does that work?
Let's not promote smoking, but by all means, have a coffee and a water or whatever you'd like, and we'll resume in 5 minutes' time. All right.
Excellent. I'll put my timer.
Okay.
All right. Be right back after.
Okay. good to go?
Good to go.
Okay. All right, just. All right. Well, now, what's the next section, Gert?
I'm going to run the team through the 3 stages. Do the right project stage, do the project right stage, and then very briefly, because it's only one phase actually, the operation stage, right? So that should not take more than an hour. In fact, I've boiled it down to 3-4 sentences of what should happen in every phase. And I think it ties in with the subject of this course, which is integration. So if anyone in today's audience would ever be involved in a new hospitality project, this is your template, right? You can have a discussion and participate in the conversation. Does that work?
Yep. Okay, well, we'll hand over to you now and take it away.
All right, so here we go again. Just confirming, Len, that you can see my screen and that it says doing the right project.
I can see your screen and it says doing the right project.
Excellent. Okay, so first of all, we're now talking about the green block or the hotel conceptualization stage. As you can see, there's 2, 4, 6, 7 phases. Technically speaking, if we go by PMBOK and by project boundaries, this is not yet a project. We are still making up our mind as to whether or not we have a project, right? But the 7 phases that you see here, other than maybe a forma for the feasibility study, are not done. So let's see what happens in every phase and why it is so important. Now, anecdotally, I can tell you that personally, I can open any hotel. It doesn't matter. But cutting the ribbon and having the opening party doesn't make it a successful project. Because again, if that is a Grand Hyatt in a 5th-tier city in, let's say, China, where the highest average rate is $50, I opened it well. The staff was well. They look smart in their new uniforms. But from a business case perspective, we are never going to earn money back because we should charge $500 for that hotel, but the market will only support 50. And this all important business case phase, the very first case, is most of the time just skipped. And the business case phase is looking at the economic potential and getting a yes or no. Do we need another project or another hotel in this island or in this city? And if the answer is no, because citywide or island-wide hotels only run at 50% occupancy and the rates have been decreasing for the past 10 years, we should stop. There won't be a project. But this phase is skipped. So what I would expect at the end of this phase is a simple document that tells us that it is yes or not worth investing in this project. And that is not based on I want or I like, but based on business needs, a cost-benefit analysis, and what we call in the hotel industry unaccommodated demand. You can get fantastic data from STR, Smith Travel Research, about that. And unaccommodated demand means that you look at the number of times you say no to someone when they want to book a room. You're fully booked. Now, Hong Kong, before the crisis, there were a couple of months that you could not get a room, and it was justifiable to build yet another hotel there. Okay. Sustainability. I added this phase a couple of years back because it's no longer optional. Investors, our hotel guests, and other stakeholders are actually looking at it. Are we doing right by community, by environment, etc.? So we are not making a sustainability strategy here, but we're looking at the risks, short-term, medium-term, and long-term, as well as the opportunities. Maybe today you might still get away with putting plastic bottles with water in your guest rooms. Maybe in 3 years' time, legislation will forbid you, or your customers will boycott you. Already in the United States, big organizations like IBM, before they book your hotel, for a residential meeting, they will ask you to submit your carbon footprint. And if you can't do that, you do not get the business. So it will hurt your business. So what I would like at the end of this phase is a 2-page document that demonstrates that we understand what is happening in the global context as well as at a local level in terms of regulations, both the physical and the market aspects. And this is a document that we would then circulate and give to every single stakeholder that gets involved in the project. Because if we say we are going to try to generate half of our energy through solar panels, your interior design and your engineering consultant need to be given that information. And very often, more often than not, this phase is skipped. And then it's like we wake up because the hotel management company will come with a fantastic a green program. But most of that was only feasible by discussing it up front. And I am then stuck basically with the scenario of changing light bulbs, and all those other things then cannot be done anymore. Conceptual planning, nothing to do with design. These are little bubbles. What we are going to determine in this phase is what makes us different from other hotels. So our DNA, and we do that, of course, in order to be able to compete. Now, at the end of this phase, we have a document that clearly states what our brand stands for. And that includes unique DNA of style, our values, differentiators, guidelines, standards. These are your brand standards or system standards. And a brand platform and promise. Okay, brand platform that includes, of course, your reservations system distribution. The little asterisk means that if you sign an agreement with a franchisor, most of what is written here is provided to you. If you don't, you will need to develop that yourself. Okay, so remember the business case. This was about determining in our city, do we need yet another hotel? Yes or no, based on unaccommodated demand. Let's just say that the answer is yes. The feasibility tells us whether we can afford this, because yes, Hong Kong needs more hotels, but no, based on the price of a square meter of land, you will never be able to earn your money back unless that is a 5-star hotel, right? So this phase involves about analyzing the economic and financial viability of your hotel project to confirm that you can earn your money back. And that is done based on market assessment, profit and loss projections, pro forma for the coming 10 years, a risk analysis, meaning will there be other competitors, positive risk as well, will there be an additional airport, therefore more passengers coming in, and what is going to happen in terms of social and regulatory environment. Not completely related, but apparently people in Amsterdam are sick and tired of tourists with the little roll-on, roll-off suitcases that stay in cheap motels and Airbnbs, and they want to reduce the number of tourists. Venice apparently is enjoying its peace and quiet, and they don't want tourism to come back the way it was before. So those are the things that you need to identify and analyze, of course. So at the end of this phase, what we want is a detailed document that tells us what will be the optimal hotel. Is it 100 rooms? Is it 200 rooms? Is it the 1-star? Is it the 5-star? How do we maximize market penetration, maximize our performance, and the internal rate of return? Now, there's a funny thing in the hospitality industry. When I was in hotel school, I wanted to work for Interconti. This is before it was purchased by IHG, because this was luxury, 5-star, prestige. When I started to work for IHG, actually, I was working in Holiday Inn Express, and my colleagues were making fun of me, as in the 3-star guy. And it had already dawned on me that it was not really about stars, but about making money. The owners that I was working with, I had no conflicts about cash flow because those hotels were profitable. They were undertaken because they made perfect business sense. And here is a difference. Your typical Holiday Inn or your Crown Plaza makes about 20-25% gross operating profit. And a Holiday Inn Express makes 60 to 70% gross operating profit. But we don't look at it from the money side. We look at it from how prestigious is the brand. So we need to do this. Okay, brand and operator selection. This is an interesting one. There are misperceptions about that. This is about really two things, two separate questions. That business case. Do we make more money by signing a franchise agreement or by developing our own brand? And the second question, unrelated, is do we make more money by asking a professional manager to run it for us, or should we run it ourselves? The misperception here across Asia is that if you sign a contract for a Novotel, automatically Accor will run your hotel. And this is inseparable. What you see is this holy trinity construction in the United States. There is one party who is the owner. There is another party who provides the brand, the franchisor. And then there is a third party, for example, Interstate, who has no brands, but who will run your hotel, your asset, under any brand. And they will act on your behalf to make sure that the brand company does right by you. So those are two different questions. I always ask the question, if you are in a specific island, and I will give you Bali as an example, would it make sense for a resort developer to sign for a Novotel? Probably yes. Why? Because Accor is well known in Australia, as it is in France and in Germany. Combined, I think, between these three countries is already something like 25 million loyalty program holders. So you know how to fill that hotel. Then again, if you would be in, let's say, northwest China, in the Gobi Desert, in Urumqi, how well is the brand known within China? Well, maybe this is the wrong brand and the wrong management company to sign for. And maybe you should go for a company like Jinjiang, who is well established domestically and who has the ability to fill your hotel. So it's not about prestige, it's about, does this company have the distribution capability to fill that hotel? Marriott in Hong Kong, 60% of their reservations came through Marriott.com. And that is amazing. So that means you only have to worry about filling 40% of your room inventory. So at the end of this exercise, you are able to make an informed decision whether you make more money with a franchise brand or with your own brand, and whether you should hire someone to run the hotel for you, or if you did hotel school, manage it yourself. Couple of types of agreement that might be of interest. They are all very boring, but I have read a couple of hundred, because this is what will clarify what the owner needs to do contractually and what you need to do. And one of the drills from Wyndham was, read these as if we are going to end up in court. And actually, by extracting what each party needs to do, it avoids a lot of problems, obviously. Now, the mindset in the hospitality industry is, do not talk about the contractual obligations, because apparently that is bad for the relationship. I don't agree with that. Okay, in any case, there is an HMA, a hotel management agreement. There is a franchise agreement. Then there is something, a hybrid, which is called a manchise agreement. In addition, there is, yes or no, a technical service agreement. And there is the trademark license agreement. The difference between a hotel management agreement and a franchise agreement is as follows. Under a hotel management agreement, the operator, Accor or IHG, provides expertise and systems, and they control the operation, and they are responsible for the top line revenues and the bottom line gross operating profit. They may provide technical assistance. That really depends. Is it a conversion or is it a new build? Franchise agreement. The franchisor, for example, Wyndham Hotel Group, provides you systems, and they try to influence you by training you on how to use those systems. But you, as the franchisee, are responsible for the operational results. And then the manchise agreement is a hybrid between the HMA and the FA. There used to be a Westin here in the island where I live. It was a franchise operation, but the hotel general manager was nominated by Westin, and that made it a manchise agreement. All right, financing. Now, this is where it goes wrong most of the time. Time and time again, we come across skeletons of would-be hotels that are topped off and not finished. And that is because of this. The finance phase is about securing money for the entire project based on a realistic budget that does not waste any resources. And at the end of this exercise, we have funding for the totality of the project budget. And here I feel a little bit silly because I'm talking to project management professionals and you go, yeah, of course, because we did scope, time, and then of course we determine the cost. The misperception in the hospitality industry is that, well, I already have land, so building the hotel, that is the bulk of the money. How expensive can it be to fit it out and put a couple of people in uniform? Well, HVS has done extensive research every year in the United States for 1 up to 5-star hotels. And the conclusion is that purchase of land plus the construction is only 50% of the budget that you need. So fitting it out, buying all the operating equipment and supplies, if it's something like 50,000 different items that you need in order to open a hotel. So what you need is, of course, money to buy or lease the land, money for building it and fitting it out, legal fees, a lot of professional fees and consultant fees, and pre-opening activities, which is renting your pre-opening office, hiring and training the staff. You will need to make an extensive list of all the sugar sachets, knives, spoons, forks, plates, etc. Contingency fund and management reserve, and working capital for the first 3 to 9 months of the operation. Just in case something happens, you will need to have some money in the bank to pay the bank and to pay the salaries of the staff. Okay, this is what often goes wrong. Funding is arranged up to construction, maybe part of the fit out, and then either the project gets delayed or I am asked to reduce the training time and to buy B-grade operating equipment and supplies. Okay, I will spare you that slide. You probably know it better than I do. Now, the approval phase. This means that we go to the board of directors internally and to the government and get external approval. And at the end of this phase, we have formal approval from the board of directors. After we are able to demonstrate that, hey, this makes sense to build this hotel, we will get return on investment, and the bank is willing to give us the money. Otherwise, it's pointless to go to the board. And second, the government, the municipality, has provided us with the construction permits and confirmed that the land we're building on is indeed zoned for tourism. Okay, then this one, I have never actually seen one, but a project charter, I do make one for the pre-opening phase. Why are we undertaking this high-level scope, etc., etc. I've never actually seen one that says this new hotel project is authorized. That's ironic, isn't it? Okay, so in recap, this conceptualization stage is about how to do the right project. Phases, of course, are interdependent, and they will help us determine whether we should go ahead, yes or no, with this project. I'm attending some training from STR about a number of methodologies that help us with the business case and with the feasibility study. And the instructor said, no is sometimes the correct answer. All right. So upon approval of the project charter, the project manager can now hire the team in order to design, build, open, and operate the hotel. Okay, Glenn, that was rather short, I would say. 2 questions on this one, and then we'll go into doing the project in the right way. Hospitality.
All right, thanks for that, Gert. Any questions now for Gert with what we've just had a look at there? It's a lot of information coming at us.
Yes, it is.
I was just thinking when you mentioned project charter, I was thinking, well, project charter for us is, project management 101. So,
yes.
And the fact that you've said you've never seen one, I thought, well, there you go. That typifies or explains, vividly, where the hotel industry is, in regard to this. One of the things, one of the earlier comments you made was about aggressive growth plans. Sorry, I was involved with an organisation where we had rapid growth, and part of one of our biggest problems was actually controlling the rate of growth. Growth was great, It was the most exciting time of my life, but my commercial life. But I have to say the biggest problem I had was always looking over my shoulder, making sure that I hadn't forgotten something. It's you really need to have planned growth for it to be sustainable. Otherwise you leak money anyway. One way or another you're going to leak money. So is there any question? Sorry.
No, I can elaborate on that with a hospitality example. The president of Wyndham Hotel Group in Asia Pacific in 2009 made a big statement. I am going to sign and open 50 Wyndham Grands. That is a luxury brand in 5 years' time. Okay, so I figured it out without studying PMI that in my first opening, what do I need to make sure that happens 1 week, 2 weeks before the opening, up to 12 months before the opening? So T minus. Well, that same methodology, that same logic, of course, applies. You want to open 50 hotels. First of all, you need 50 general managers, 50 directors of sales and marketing, 50 executive chefs. You need the corporate people that are going to review those drawings, etc., etc. You can't open a can of talent, of course. You need to start building that talent pool now so that you can use it in 2 years. The pipeline that we had, Glenn, at that time was like 70 hotels, meaning owners that we were talking to, some confirmed with a contract, some sitting on the fence but under negotiation. My advice on let's get ready and prepare for the onslaught was ignored. We opened the first hotel. It was bad. Second hotel, it was even worse. And guess what? That whole development pipeline dried up. And until now, Wyndham Hotel Group has 1 or 2 Wyndham Grands in China. So 11 years later, they still cannot relaunch their brand because they messed up the impression of hotel investors, owners, to the ability of Wyndham Hotel Group as a serious hotel opener, And that has been part of my pitch. Everyone competes about, we're great. We have the best brands. We have fantastic system distribution, and we have a great loyalty program. And no one competes on, we will help you to better manage your project, reduce time to market, and get you up and running cash flows. That would be a unique selling point for me, but not yet there.
It's almost they're operating and they're losing in spite of themselves. I mean, the case can be made that project management or introducing project management will actually expedite swifter controls. In fact, I think there's a perception out there that the minute you put in project management, it actually slows things down, but it actually goes the opposite. It actually speeds things up, because when you're planning things without project management and you just fumble and bumble your way along, you kind of think you're going to be okay, but project management, and then you leak money all over the place and leak opportunity and all those sort of things. But when you plan and strategize, there's absolutely no reason why you can't have a perfect project every time, and that's the difference. That's the difference. Look, it doesn't look like there's any other questions. It's just good for us to have a little natter. It gave your mind a little bit of a break from the job at hand. We might dive straight back in if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So what we're going to talk about now is doing the project right. And my life has fundamentally changed in one way and not changed at all in another way since I moved from corporate office to managing my own business. I still open hotels. That is still the same process. If I get asked, am I pro owner or pro operator? I say neither. I'm pro project. The thing that has fundamentally changed was that whether I was with IHG or with Wyndham, I had a KPI. You must open 10 hotels this year. Well, guys, how do I do that? Because I don't control the construction, right? Right now, I don't have that stress of a KPI. I see my role as advising the hotel developer across the development pipeline. First-time owners tend to ignore my advice. So at least I don't have that stress of a KPI. Now, what we're going to see here is I'm going to share with you and impart a little bit of understanding of what happens in the delivery stage. Okay, this is really about doing the project in the right way. So that is the orange block here. 2.5 years ago, I was approached by an American client who wanted to do a new resort concept somewhere in Mexico or in the Caribbean. And he said, I had been referred to by one of my former bosses who works and lives in the United States now, because I am so good with hotel openings. Well, yeah, pre-opening, I know my way around. If you ask me for design construction, no, I need to help establish a team. So first meeting with this client, he said, come and fly to Washington, D.C. We're going to meet Gensler. Now, Gensler is one of the most expensive hotel architects in the world. I flew in, listened to it, sat down with my client afterwards and said, look, have you done the business case? The what? Have you done any financial studies? No, we don't need. Now, he came from the TV industry. He was doing documentaries and reality TV shows, and it's all about feeling. And money is raised through venture capitalists. And he thought that with a flight through video, he was going to raise money very quickly. He was not counting on the New York real estate establishment, which demanded all that. And of course, he was not getting anywhere. I then said, look, if it's going to be in this way, you going straight into architecture, thank you, but no thank you. I'll stay in Asia. I have those same problems, but minus the long flights. He then said, okay, what are we going to do? First and foremost, you and I are not in charge. We hire a project director who will hire all of the consultants. And the phases that you see here, the list for that particular resort, which included a lazy river and water slides and entertainment, we needed 45 different consultants. He challenged me for a whole day, and it stood up. And I said, they all need to be on board now. He said, but why? I don't want to pay them. I said, you're not going to pay all of them, but we need them during the kickoff meeting. And a typical example of what happens is, look at the interior design and engineering phase. An engineering consultant probably knows about electricity and gas and water. What this person lacks, and I'm meaning this in a very respectful way, but what he would not know is that a typical combi oven would require not only water, but also a 3-phase electricity socket, you know? And your typical interior designer would forget probably to install drainage in your kitchen. I wouldn't know that because I started my career scrubbing kitchen floors and washing pots and pans. So I would immediately look at that. And that is, Glenn, what I said up front. We need Glenn and Gert, so that Glenn and Gert plus 43 other people talk together and establish that scope. If not, you will get that day that the oven is delivered and that they can't power it up because we forgot to brief the engineer to anticipate the 3-phase socket. So that is really what this stage is about. Now, first and foremost, this is about selecting and buying all the professional services, appointing specialists, as well as specialty consultants. The main deliverable is obviously formation of a project team that is going to sit in a room to plan and execute all of the phases of the current project, because we have the project charter, right? So what you see here is indeed that example. These are all of the consultants. I listed the project management team, the project team, then your typical consultants and the specialty consultants. And that is what is needed for a typical 500 room resort with an entertainment component. Okay. So what happens then is now we are going to secure the land, unless of course the developer has a land bank, which is a scenario. If not, we need to go out and make sure that we get the land. The main deliverable in this phase is that we have a legal document that gives us either temporary or full-time ownership of the land. I don't know about Australia, but I think that freehold ownership of the land is quite common. In China, that is not the case. You lease it from the state. In the Maldives, for example, you cannot buy an island. You can lease it for up to 99 years, and then it reverts back to the state. Okay? So one final point is quite often I've seen, quite frequently actually, I've seen projects that instead of waiting for all the approvals, they try to do that in parallel, so-called fast tracking. And upon top of course, some government official comes and said, well, you're in an industrial zone, you're not allowed to run a hotel here, right? What do you do then? Okay, architecture. Architecture and interior design is quite different. It can be, of course, that one firm provides both disciplines, but if you would ask me to give you a hotel example, food and beverage includes the waiters that serve the food and the cooks that cook it. They are interdependent, but they are completely different training and career paths. But you need to do both, of course. Now, architecture is really about the overall footprint. Okay, how much space are you going to take up on the land? What does the hotel look like from the outside? And you are going to make space allocations for what is going to happen on the inside. So what you could say to the architect is, we will have a ballroom for 500 people sit-down dinner. That means that the architect will allocate the space needed for that ballroom at 30% for storage, a foyer where people can have their pre-dinner cocktails, a service corridor, and a service kitchen. What happens inside that space, this is not the job of the architect. But of course, this is key, because once you have piled and you start building the shell and core, it is too late to say, we forgot that we needed a ballroom or a car park or stuff like that. So at the end of the architecture phase, we get a set of formally approved concept planning, those nice 3D renderings, with a set of detailed, dimensioned construction drawings. Okay, so detailed drawings, in the old days that was those blueprints. Nowadays everything is in AutoCAD. Also material specification. The driveway is going to be of some kind of stone. We'll have a sample of that. And an areas analysis, which means we have the lobby. Do we have a lobby lounge? Yes or no. Do you have a lobby bar? Yes or no. How many restaurants? Is there an executive club? Yes or no. And very important, very often forgotten, is the back of the house. Okay, you need staff entrance, you need locker rooms, uniform room, staff restaurant, training rooms, all the offices, storerooms, etc. In fact, Glenn, I have done, and I'm doing this on an annual basis, a guest lecture for Cornell University. There is one person who teaches project management, and I am sharing, because I'm not an expert, of course, in design, but the consequences on the operation if the back of the house is wrongly designed. And it goes wrong most of the time. All right, so footprint and outside is done. The interior designer now starts together with the engineering. So this is really about the look and the feel of the inside of the building. What we want to do is to define the interior detail planning, the spatial geometry, and what we call the FF&E, the finishes, the furniture, and the equipment. And very important, make sure that we have that environmental control, which is your air conditioning, your lighting, the sand, horizontal and vertical transportation. And again, at the end of this phase, a set of formally approved concept plannings and those 3D renderings, all the way to detailed dimension construction documentation. That means we get detailed drawings for the restaurants, for all the guest rooms. We get material specifications and samples for the interior design, up to the upholstery for the sofas in the lobby, a piece of carpet for the guest room, make sure that it is fire retardant, etc. And all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems of the entire building. Okay, so with this done, we now have all the elements for the next phase, which is procurement and construction. Now, in this phase, someone goes out to buy the steel, the concrete, the bricks, the mortar, etc., and we start building up the shell and the core up to top off. And at the same time, your diesel generator, your elevator systems, electrical panels are installed by the main sub and the specialty contractors. And at the end of this phase, the construction phase, what we get is only a partially completed hotel that is topped off and ready for fit out. And fit out start the moment that the window cladding is in, so that the elements cannot make it wet and dirty again. Now, there's a couple of different construction methods. The most prevalent one in the hospitality industry is conventional. We bring bricks and mortar to the construction site and we do it there. I'm actually making a case that in some cases, modular construction would actually not necessarily be cheaper, but it could help you get up to speed, reduce the time to market, and that could be of benefit, of course, if you have a lease on a piece of land for, let's say, 10 years. That is a different course altogether. Okay, fit out. So the building is topped off, the window cladding is in. This, to me, by the way, as a side point, is one of those major milestones. When the building is topped off, plus 12 months is when I will take possession of the hotel as the general manager, and then I need another 2 months in order to clean it, to set it up, etc. We'll come back to that in one of the next slides. So the fit out is really about fabricating and supplying all of your chairs, your tables, your desks, ordering the bed boxes and the mattresses, etc. Everything that is fixed to the wall, the mirror, all that stuff, plus all of your IT hardware and software. A common mistake is to forget about the horizontal and vertical cabling. This is then thought of once the false ceiling is already in, and that is of course causing a cost overrun and a schedule overrun. Now, when the hotel is fitted out, what we really have at the end of this phase is a hotel that is fully furbished, fully tested, fully commissioned. The government will allow you to run your elevators, etc. And we are ready for handover from the construction team officially to the owner, who will then give it to the hotel management team. What I try to do is do that simultaneously. The hotel management team then will need to clean it, set it up, conduct on-site training and simulation exercises. So one anecdote there and a couple of points. Cleaning. You have no idea how dirty a hotel building is when it's handed over. A couple of points there. You will need to clean, and clean some more because the dust is just in the air. One hard lesson that I learned was a hotel opening that I did in Hangzhou. I was only a room division director, but it was ready. Okay, ballroom, beautifully set up for 1,000 people for an opening function. We had forgotten, however, to blow the air conditioning system, and around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they turned on the air conditioning system in the ballroom, and it was like an atomic bomb went off inside. There was 2 centimeters of dust from construction had been delayed, probably from 5 years of construction dust in those ductings. So before you start laying your carpet, make sure that you blow that air conditioning system. Setup. You probably have 150 different items like your safety deposit box, tissue box, the slippers, the bathrobe, etc. that you need to transport from the loading bay to each room and then set it up. And then the on-site training is, of course, going from the classroom where it was lectures to training people on how to switch on and off the equipment and how the espresso machine worked. And very important, simulation exercises. To me, in project management, you would probably call it a dry run or trial and error. That is exactly what we do. I will create scenarios. 1 week is with our colleagues who will check in, and 1 week is with people from outside, people from travel agents, corporate bookers, people from the management and the owning company, and they get a strict scenario. You must check in at 6 o'clock. You must order from the room service menu or in the restaurant and check out. And of course, we create stress scenarios. Up to, if relevant, we'll hire a couple of buses and have 150 people arrive at the same time in order to simulate a delayed flight or a canceled flight. And that is an invaluable part of making sure that, imagine there is a young person straight out of hotel school and there is 50 screaming guests in front of this person. Probably it will end up in tears. But if they can handle that in a controlled environment, when it happens once people start to pay, we have eased them into the operational routine. Okay, now the pre-opening. This is about preparing the facilities for occupation by the staff and by the paying guest and maximizing the business ramp up. Now, that business ramp up, of course, starts 8 or 10 months before the opening with development of the sales and marketing plan, 4 months, and then actually executing it. The best way as a general manager to keep your job is to make sure that from day one you have paying guests in the hotel. And the main deliverable of this phase is that you have a hotel asset that is technically ready. That means no defect in the rooms do not smell of paint and varnish. Operationally ready, the staff is trained, they have equipment, and they look smart in their uniform, and commercially ready. That means that we have done everything we could on Facebook and Twitter. We've done sales calls, contracts are out, pre-opening offer is out, and we're live in whatever.com. And we have received both authorization from the government, your business license, and from the management company. Small anecdote there, when I was opening Holiday Inn Expresses, before IHG would switch on the reservation system, I needed to collect 15 signatures from vice presidents to sign off that they were satisfied that the business license was in place, that there was working capital in the bank, and that the insurance policy had been signed. That was a little bit stressful. Okay, so in recap, the hotel delivery stage is about how to do the project in the right way. The phases are interdependent, and it is all leading towards that simultaneous technical, operational, and commercial readiness. So it's really not about cutting a ribbon. And finally, doing the right project right increases your chances of having a successful operation, maintenance, and sale of the hotel. Cool. And the next one will literally take 5 minutes only, because this is operations which is ongoing for 10 or 25 years. We can take a quick question here about this phase, or this stage.
If you don't mind, why don't we just keep going, and we'll, because I've got 3 or 4 questions here, and we'll just lump all the questions at the end, if that's okay.
That is okay. Let me just pop it up.
Do you want to have a drink or something?
No, I'm all good.
Okay, going well.
Thanks for asking.
Well, that's all right. That's okay. I haven't gone to sleep once. It's been good.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Glenn, just to confirm that you see my screen and it says operations and disposal.
Confirmed.
Cool. So for everyone in the class today, the next phase, or the next 3 phases, is literally not more than 5 minutes. But I've been speaking about an hour now, and this is what people in hotel schools and in hotel companies, they're always puzzled by, that the amount of effort and time and money that is required to get to that comfortable situation. Because being a hotel general manager, it is a nice experience. You know, you have your office, you can entertain in the restaurant, you're a public figure, etc. And that is quite different from all the work that is actually involved in getting you to that. So those phases that we saw now, this is 3, 4, 5 years of someone's life, only to get to this now. Operations and disposal. And this is for me to share a little bit with you what happens once you have handed over the project, transferred to operations, and walked away. So there's only one phase actually, really. What we did in the past 3 to 4 years across those 14 phases really builds up towards selling the hotel at a profit. Okay. Now the first one is the post-opening, which I consider part of my work, but according to the project boundaries, it is no longer part of the project. Now, I have added this because I made the mistake of basically on opening date, as in opening for paying customers, handing over the project to the vice president of operations and walk away. There are always a number of unsolved issues that would slip through the cracks, and that would pop up a year afterwards when they get the brand certification. You know, hotels go through that QS process with the checklist. Do you have this? Do you have that? And no one remembers, of course, what was outstanding. Outstanding, typical. The radio wasn't delivered yet because, I don't know, there was a strike somewhere, or you didn't get your cigarette or your foreign exchange license yet. So for 30, 60, 90 days, I am no longer in charge, but I'm still involved in order to make sure that we tick off on everything. That is the post-opening phase. All right, so what happens in the post-opening phase is, this is bridging that transition from projects to operations. And it is in a way, it's like New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, you will have a fantastic experience at a hotel if they do a New Year's Eve party, because everyone was hyped up. don't go to breakfast the next morning because people are tired and they're slowing down and the service will not be good. And it seems to be like that. Everyone is hyped up towards the opening, and then to make that change to we are no longer in a project, we have to be mindful of actually guests being around. It's weird. It takes a bit of an effort. Now, the main deliverable of this phase is that I get a nicely signed paper that states there were no defects when I was done, there were no unresolved issues, and we can formally close the hotel development project. And if you look at what happens in the PMBOK, you should be closing the bank accounts, for example. We have separate bank accounts for managing the pre-opening expenses and for buying all the operating equipment and supplies. Whatever money is left needs to be returned to the hotel developer, right? So that is formal closure. And of course, is the post-project review. We typically don't do that in a hotel project. So all those lessons learned are lost. Now, this is what a typical general manager would do. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning with a morning briefing. Then we check the breakfast buffet, etc. Somewhere in August, we start with next year's budget cycle. Then, of course, you have Christmas and New Year. If you're in China, you would have then Chinese New Year somewhere in January, February. And then in August, you would start with next year's budget. So day-to-day operation, maintaining the assets. The main outcome of this phase is, for it's repeated 15 or 25 times, is maximize positive cash flows from operation, and hopefully you'll be able to increase the asset value. And increasing the asset value could be that you upgrade the brand, you go from Holiday Inn to Crowne Plaza, or from Holiday Inn to Holiday Inn Express, whatever would work best. You could say, well, let's build a new restaurant, or let's add a spa. And of course, you make sure that every 7 years the rooms are refreshed or renovated. And then finally, after all that work that we have done, we are going to execute our exit strategy. So that means that at the end of the holding period, if it is a lease or if you own it, you could sell it, you're going to execute it. And hopefully you will sell the hotel asset at a fat profit and realize your internal rate of return. Okay, so doing the right project right increases the chances of successfully operating, maintaining, and disposing the hotel. The operations and disposal stage is really about maximizing positive cash flows from operation and increasing the value of the asset. The entire life cycle, all of those 15 phases, build up to the execution of the exit strategy. And if you fail to implement, let's say, the first block, the green block, business case feasibility, you are severely undermining your ability to get that internal rate of return. All right, Glenn, I think that was 25 years in the life of a hotel compressed in 2 hours. So I think I brought it in on time, right?
Well, we did advertise 90 minutes, but look,
sorry.
That's all right. No, I was quite happy to sort of let it keep going. It was just look, I've obviously heard a lot of presentations. I must admit, there wasn't a boring bit tonight. I was entranced. So hopefully others were as well. I know that I've got a number of my project management students. I don't mean to differentiate between others, but I do know my project management students, and we talk about the sorts of things in class. And it's very good to have some of the comments that we've made in class validated by yourself, and perhaps even different and maybe more perspectives of the things that have been discussed in class. So I was very, very pleased with that. If you don't mind, Gert, I'd like to open up the floor for some questions. I've got a number of questions. Geraldine's got a question. She's straight off the mark, but that's Geraldine. She's very sharp. Have you ever worked on a project where the stress test scenario significantly failed or delayed the opening?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Stress test failed, but typically you do not get the flexibility to say we're not ready to open. Typically it's like just run with it for a number of reasons, because the owner has a commitment to government, or you have already taken on business, or the management company says, look, we need that cash to come in for both the owner and, of course, the management fees. Yeah. What I have done is during punch list and rectification in one hotel in a specific city. I have a number of ways of checking things, and the first thing is I put my shoulder in the door, okay, and it should resist. In this case, I was able to bust open the door. The owner's representative said, "Oh, that's an individual problem." I did 25 more doors, and then I just stopped, called corporate office, and said, "If you want to have a rape case or something or a theft case, you allow this to happen." And they said, "No, absolutely not. Official legal letter to the owner. This needs to be rectified before you are authorized to open as a brand." Yeah. So as soon as it touches on fire life safety or on guest safety, staff safety, this is where they step in. The fact that someone might score you 60% for guest service, Geraldine, yeah, that's teething problems, they would call it. Yeah, I don't agree with it, by the way, but
So let me get this right. Maybe I haven't got it quite right, but we're going to have a test. But even if we fail, we're opening.
yes.
Okay, so that sounds a little illogical to me. The whole point of the test is to prepare and highlight and obviously put yourself in a position to rectify in order to open, but that's not necessarily the case. Geraldine saying cash is king. So there you go. Yep, probably right.
Well, I have to add to that. Because what typically happens is during dry run and trial and error. Dry run first, this is with internal staff. We have the scenarios, everyone checks in. The only difference is there is no cash, but we will photocopy money in order to simulate the closing of the day, the drop of the cash, etc. The management team is there with clipboards and stopwatches. They're not allowed to intervene, but we know the scenarios. We tape it, and based on that feedback, we then brief the team and we retrain instantly. At the end of this week and even the second week, we do an individual matrix for each staff to see where the shortfalls were, right? And we keep on training after that. The problem is that I will, from day one, tell the owner and the main contractor, I need you out of the building 2 months before the opening. And here is why: because if you hand over too late, it eats into the critical license application process, which in China, for example, takes 6 weeks. So you can't keep working until a week before the opening. Of course, under pressure, I am then forced to cut short on dry run and trial and error, and I go straight into live operations. And that is because we have started to pre-sell, right? That's a whole different animal. Yeah.
Joanna's asked, what's the difference between the tests in the fit-out stage and the pre-opening? She's saying they look very similar.
Okay, so there is testing and commissioning where someone from the management company in, let's say, the engineering department witnesses the testing of the elevators by, let's say, Mitsubishi with a local government officer. So that is one part that I personally don't touch on because I'm not qualified. Then they hand over the building. Part of my job is to do a punch list and rectification process. I will go in with a team. We will look at, is there a safety chain, a spy hole, evacuation plan. What I will do as well, if you want to be really technical, I have a decibel meter to measure the noise of the air conditioning. I have a little machine that blows smoke into the smoke detector that is working. We run the hot and the cold water. We flush, etc. You even do flush tests, by the way, on the whole floor and on the vertical level to make sure that there's no overflow. And we make a report. We can do this within an hour. The main contractor then will need probably a week because of the various specialties, plumber, electrician, etc., to fix all that. We repeat it. They fix again, and we repeat it a third time. Normally, that does the trick. Yeah. Yep. So that is that. And then separately, we test. What's the quality of the food that the chef is putting out? And the best way to do is invite a school or invite an office with office staff and say, you're invited. It's not a free meal in that sense. You don't pay, but it's a training exercise.
Yep.
Yep.
Sounds good. Now Diana's asked a question. I think she's got her tongue very firmly fixed in her cheek, but nonetheless, do you think that in the real world, PMBOK is just a theory and that hotel owners can change the life cycle of the project? Do you think that in the real world, PMBOK is just a theory and that hotel owners can change the life cycle of the project?
Okay, I'll cut it in two, and the easy part first, Diana. Great question. That project life cycle, I've used it now for 10 years. It still stands. And HVS, Collier, and Jones Lang LaSalle have looked at it. Try to cut out anything and see what happens. You could simulate that. And the answer is it's predictable, it's predictive. You cannot cut out any of those phases without severe consequences on the technical, operational, and commercial readiness. So no, you cannot change. And it doesn't make sense to hire your dishwasher before the general manager. So that part, it just makes it ignorant if people know about it and they try to compress, you know, let's not do the feasibility. And then they start to cry and they go into bankruptcy, okay? Now, in the real world, PMBOK, is it a theory, yes or no? No, absolutely not. It's not that I'm a pro-PMI, but I do think that PMI as a methodology or as an institution have done fantastic things for the profession, notably those standards. And I personally don't get the pushback from the hotel industry, but everything is standardized. I will show you a book here. It says Uniform System of Accounting for the Lodging Industry. And if you are setting up a hotel, you do not need to develop your accounting standards. It's already written by the American Hotel and Lodging Association, and hotel management contracts stipulate you must use this. So why are we trying to reinvent a similar approach for project management? Why not use time, scope, cost, quality, stakeholders, etc.? You know, in fact, I went a step further. I wrote a book on project management of hotel opening processes, and I make a case study there, or a pitch for we could write an extension, a hotel opening extension to the PMBOK. How do you apply sales and marketing in the pre-opening, right? So no, I don't think it is outlandish or theoretical. I think that what you need to decide, of course, is hotel of 1,000 rooms, full PMBOK. You have your scheduling team, your risk management team. A small project, boutique with 5 rooms, I'll do the risk management and I'll do the scheduling and not much more because it's a very small project and we don't have the resources. So it's of course up to us, and I get that pushback that this is very dictatorial. No, this is available and it is over to you to use common sense and take out the stuff that is applicable and relevant in your operating environment. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. I'm sure that that answered Diana's question. You mentioned lessons learnt while we're waiting for some more questions. You mentioned lessons learnt, and lessons learnt is one of my little pet things because, you know, the old saying that the difference between a wise person and a fool is, you know, a wise person will make a mistake and not repeat it, but a fool will always repeat the same mistake. So lessons learnt is very important. And so my question is, and look, I know this is a bit hard, but what kind of value, given that you've explained, I don't know how many hotels that you were bringing into your into your explanation, but I think there's probably 30 odd motels over your life, at least 30, right? So in your experience, if you'd have been able to gather together all the lessons learnt over all those hotels and then avoided the problems that you've had in the past, in the present, what sort of saving do you think? Are we talking millions? What sort of savings would there be? It is that, isn't it? There are some very big problems.
The sample that we did was 635. And we really looked at time, scope, cost, and quality. And we did apply good, bad, ugly. Good if you score on all three. Bad if you, let's say, fail on scope or on time. And ugly if you failed more than two. Out of 635, do you care to guess how many scored good?
Not many, I'd imagine.
Only 4 hotels, you know. So
Yep.
yeah, you opened on time, but you had brand creep, you had scope creep, and brand creep could be up or down. You know, a Novotel that looks like a Sofitel, or a Sofitel that looks like an Ibis. You know, and all of that. And this is the point: is it is avoidable because it is there is no uncertainty. If you build a Holiday Inn or a Novotel or a Ramada, what you need to build is crystal clear. It's not like a design project that you need to do iterations. Yesterday, by the way, I did get asked a question in Dubai. What is my opinion about Agile, you know, and Scrum? Don't know too much about it. I'm not aware of it because we would not use it in a hotel project because of the predictive life cycle. There are no iterations other than owner doesn't like the design, do it again. We change from blue curtains to pink curtains, done. But yeah.
In our world, we would call that a traditional project, which is where all things are known. So if all things are known, all things are known. Doesn't matter how complex the design is. If we know what the design is, all things are known. You know, it might be a difficult design, but we can still build that because, you know, that's just construction. You know, it's where we don't know things. It's where we've got some ambiguity about how things might fit together and connect together and all those sorts of things. That's where the agile component might come in. But no, look, if what you're saying, you know, the hotel industry is very much a traditional environment. And look, I wouldn't like you to go away from here thinking that it's only the hotel environment that has these problems, as though the hospitality, you know, industry was peculiar. In my experience, look, I can't think of a sector that really operates well. The IT industry started the ball rolling. We started getting figures and data out of the IT industry, and I think at one stage it was, you know, 80-90% of projects failed, and I think we're down to about 75% of projects failing. You know, so it's not just there, but it is at least as there as well. You know, and that's, I guess, the point that we wanted to get across to our students today. I've got another question. I'm just watching here to see if there's any other questions. There doesn't appear to be any. So, oh, okay, Geraldine did ask something. Lessons learned ever applied in your experience?
No. It's Geraldine. I'm turning in circles here. I personally I do it, obviously. Has it been a disciplined approach? Look, I spent 1.5 years building an integrated project management tracking system for Wyndham Hotel Group, and it was built in Salesforce with alerts. Believe this or not, but to open one hotel, just the pre-opening phase was 5,500 individual activities with 35 corporate departments and over 100 hotels in different locations. But it put really the spotlight on the red flags. Now, of course, there were people that embraced it immediately and said, this is great. There were the people that should never have been recruited because they were incompetent. They blocked it. And there were the people that were opportunistic, lazy, and saw the threat of this. And the moment that I moved on, I did a project with them a couple of years later. They had abandoned the system with the costs that go with it. And we're back to, but Gert, you know, so much stuff can go wrong. And I'm very comfortable having these discussions in front of a full hospitality audience because I will ask them, what can go wrong? You know, the licenses. Okay. Did the government issue a new license requirement yesterday night? No, we know. So what was the problem? Because what we did, we have a checklist, but we don't map out in the right order what is the sequence and what are the prerequisites. Again, for China, because that's where I've opened most hotels, is first, contractor is out, there's no more garbage in. Then the fire bureau will come, then the police will come, and the hygiene bureau, and then the economic bureau. And that whole process will take 6 weeks. Okay, it's not rocket science. Now, if you thought that you were going to apply for your licenses around Chinese New Year, think again. Offices are closed, people are not there for a month. So is that the fault of the government, or is that your own stupid mistake because you did not schedule it and you did not make a calendar with well, red flag dates? You know, it would be like saying I'm going to do a business meeting in the United States during Thanksgiving. People are not in the office, so there is no uncertainty. What it does not rain in certain countries and cause flooding. You know, these things are known, but what all you need to do is that workshop and look at the political situation, the economic situation. Project in Indonesia went way over budget because the prices of the equipment increased, because the president dropped the oil subsidy or the fuel subsidy, and all in a sudden, you know what happened? Oh, you know, yeah, that was unexpected. Well, he was saying that actually 2 years before the opening, that if I'm elected president, this is what I'm going to do, and the impact was already predicted. So you know, that is really a lack of proper project management basics, I would say. PM 101, you called it, Glenn. So
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Look, I'm mindful of the time. It's just gone 2 minutes past 9. So if you've got a question, post it now. We'll probably go for another 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, if that's all right, Gert, just to get these last questions in. I've got a question here about you know, given the COVID-19, you know, it's pretty well mucked up virtually every industry. I can't think of any sectors that have sort of just landed on their feet. Maybe the food chain has, you know, grocers and all those sorts of things. But I think by even they've had their problems. So given that you've got no procurement management plans, you know, no organised sort of scheduling of events that are going to take place within hoteliers, within hotel construction, how do you think your industry has handled the current crisis with the supply chain? So I imagine the supply chain, the global supply chain has been disrupted in the hotelier industry as much as anybody else. So how do you think how are they coping with that?
Well, they're not. A video just came in early this afternoon. I think 48 billion US dollar was already lost in the hotel industry, right? So, however, you know, currently I have 0 pre-opening projects because everything has stopped. On the other hand, opportunities have come my way in order to do make use of this time to develop new brands, to do feasibility studies. Design, you can keep on working. My anticipation is that business as usual only as of 2022. So that is one. Number 2 is, I actually wrote about this earlier today to someone. We will need to do more with less, which is actually a mantra from the PMI. Times are gone that we can just overspend. Where's the money going to come from? Okay. Third, you know, Macau, when I moved here, had 1.9 million tourists, and last year there were 39 million tourists on 15 square kilometers. Do we need that many tourists to be happy? So 15,000 hotel projects, Glenn, I guarantee you that 50% of those shouldn't even have seen the light of day. They should not have passed approval. So what will happen is that we will have less projects that are actually healthier projects. Now, make no mistake about it, the sample in China, by the way, 70% of those projects did have a project manager for the construction phase, but they were not all qualified, experienced, and empowered. And even if they would manage the construction properly, if your building is not coordinated with the phases before and after, it's still going to be a failed project.
If I've got some students that are listening right now and they're thinking, you know what, I've heard this bloke talk for the last 2 hours, I'm in. I want to buy in. I want to get into the hotelier industry. I want this. Well, what are some of the things that they could do to prepare themselves for employment in your industry?
If you want to be, let's say, a hotel opening specialist, and you already have the knowledge of project management. The wrong way to go about it is saying, I will manage your project, because they will shut you down immediately. I would say invest the next 2 years in operational knowledge, doing some courses in hotel management that at least you can talk the talk. See, I'm not even a project manager, but I know when to use the word critical path, for example, and milestone, right? And then position yourself in either a property role or in a corporate role to assist in managing the pre-opening process. You need to speak the way that they don't feel threatened. I never talk project management. I talk about hotel opening, pre-opening, etc. But actually, I am talking project management.
Yep.
So use the coming 2 years for getting up to speed on what happens in a hotel. Doing a hospitality real estate management course from Cornell would not hurt you. Doing an internship of a couple of months, 2 weeks housekeeping, 2 weeks kitchen, etc., so that you know why you need a drainage in the kitchen. That is that is the thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Carmel asked the question, so nothing's going to happen for 2 years. Is that your prediction?
It will not be business as usual for another 2 years, correct. And when this thing started in January and I started canceling travel, my counterparts in South Africa, the United States, thought that I was exaggerating. My prediction back in February was, if I can travel regionally, as into the Philippines or Malaysia, as of October, I will be doing good. Now, Macau is under control. Australia seems to be getting there. But it's not a concern of us. It's a concern of what happens around us that impacts us, right?
Sure.
As of today, I have said the earliest that I will be able to travel will be after Chinese New Year 2021. Why? The Macau casinos are now repatriating the foreign workers that service the hotels here, who come from Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, etc. Well, if you're planning to reopen soon, why are you not just keeping it? Why are you chartering flights? And the Prime Minister here has said, just write off 2020. So, yeah.
The Diana says, do you think that hotels after COVID-19 have to reinvent themselves? Additionally, would they have to be associated with social media marketing? I understand the first part, not sure about the second part. Additionally, they would have to be associated with social media marketing.
I think I
guess she's linking the two.
Well, they should be doing the second part anyway, because customers, that's how they interact with the hotels, right? More important, the first part. So I do not compare this crisis to SARS. I was a general manager in Hong Kong during SARS. My occupancy dropped from 85 to 5%. You have to compare this to the Spanish flu of 1918. 50 million people died. It took a while before people or the world recovered, but it was not the end of traveling nor the end of society. After 911, travel stopped for a little while. Then they added TSA, so now you needed to check in 3 hours for departure. Maybe this will result in check in 4 hours for departure because there will be a quick test, right? What I can anticipate is that unless they find the vaccine and it is back to 2 weeks of quarantine upon return to your country, business travel is going to be done virtually. And holidays, well, if you have 4 weeks of holiday and you're in quarantine for 2 weeks, it's also not going to help. So the vaccine will have to be,
Well, just by watching you tonight, Gert, I'm visiting Macau.
You should. If you can get a in quarantine.
I'm doing it virtually. Can we? Are there any more questions? Because we do need to bring this to an end. We're going to take a photo in a moment, and this is a PR photo.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so any other questions at all? Going. We might say gone. Look, Gert's offered his email address. So if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, I'm sure Gert wouldn't mind answering your question for you. I suspect that I'll be keeping in contact with Gert, so we probably be able to get Gert back at some stage to have a chat about some other things, and maybe we can catch up then. But for now, I think we might leave off the question. Now, I think I might stop the recording, and while we do a little bit of housekeeping, okay? So I'm just turning off the recording now. Thank you very much, Gert. Thank you for your time. You've been brilliant. Thank you.